Welcome to Luli's Homestead, and today's story is about dill. You know dill, that furry little plant that commonly grows in many herb gardens, can be found on farm stands. Well, it's a very common herb found in Eastern European culinary dishes. I grew up with dill, in abundance of dill. We had dill probably every single day. I'm not kidding. It was used in fresh form, frozen, dehydrated as powdered dill, and salted dill. Yes, preserved in salt. We're going to talk about it later today. So, dill is a culinary herb, but did you know it's also a medicinal herb? Now I have a disclaimer. I'm not a doctor. I do not prescribe, advise any medical advices here. I'm just sharing what I do for my family and myself. So, dill medicinally used when it's in a seed form. Seeds of dill can be used to alleviate upset belly, colicky belly in babies, aid digestion, and basically reduce gas. You can even chew dill seeds if you happen to have them in your pocket, if you have a bad breath. I'm not kidding. Also, in combination with cramp bark, dill seed can be used as a remedy aid for menstrual cramps. So something to know. But I'm going to collect my way overgrown dill. I know, I missed the mark. It should have been harvested a while back, but I was too busy. I'm going to collect my dill and I'm going to use just the little ferns for now, and I'm going to save this long stalks for something else. I'll show you later. Dill is wonderful. It is fragrant. It is just something that absolutely changes the smell and the appearance and the taste of your dishes. I encourage you guys to grow it. It's an annual plant. It will throw seeds and come back year after year as a self-seeder. It's great to have in your garden. You don't have to have much, just a little patch. Mine just happened to grow like crazy, spreading its seed all over my garden. But I don't mind. I use it. I love it.
So why are we even talking about it? You know, you can go to the store, any grocery store, and buy anything you want. Winter, summer, who cares, right? Well, there are many reasons why you should store away and save when you have an abundance of something. Right now, it's super cheap. It's readily available. Every farm stand will have it. Every backyard will have it. But in the winter, not so much. And you may be relying on purchasing something that was brought from who knows where and raised who knows how. So there is a carbon footprint you're leaving on the environment when you're trying to buy just a bunch of stinking dill for the love, really. But also, you know, as we learned in the last few months, things change rapidly. So what you may have had readily available to you yesterday, the shelves were empty of today. So I just want to share what I have been raised on. My mama did this way. Her mama before her did it this way, and this is what I'm continuing to do, and I'm hoping to inspire you to do the same thing. When in abundance, save for the future. Don't rely on high prices tomorrow. We don't know what's going to happen, but today you have plenty of it. So instead of going to waste, do something useful with it. So let me just show you what happens when the dill begins to grow super, super tall. Here are the almost seeds, and it's super long and super stemmy. Well, it's not a waste, because this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to separate the branches. Can you see this? I'm going to separate the branches from the stem. Okay? I'm going to wash it, even though they look clean. What I've learned is that these little buggers, host a lot of little buggers that need to be washed. And my garden is an organic garden, so I host a lot of little bugs in my garden. So what should you do with the stem when it's this big and attractive? Well, I'm not gonna throw it away. I'm going to freeze it. I'm not kidding. I'm going to wash it. I'm gonna fold it like this into tiny little piece, and I'm going to freeze it. And next time when I'm making my bone broth, I'm gonna put it as my aromatic into my bone broth, and it's gonna be just perfect. So again, on a homestead, we learned that nothing goes to waste. We don't throw things away just because it's too much of it. All right, so I'm going to break off all of these little branches. I'm going to wash them, and I'm going to show you what I can do with them. Now, okay, the common things that we know about herbs is what? Dried herbs, right? And it's fine, it's good. You can dry them. You can dry herbs, store them in a dry container. That's fine. You can use the dehydrated to dry them. You can dry them in the oven. I even heard some people dry them in the back seat of their car. Hey, off grid. That's fine. But unfortunately, what happens with any herb when you dry them is that herbs do lose some of its nutritional value. It's just a fact, and it's a norm. And if you can only dry them and store them that way, hey, something is better than nothing, and it's still going to be just as, good. You can also wash them, chop them up, and freeze them. Hey, that's a great idea as well. You can just pop out a little piece from your freezer, put it in your soup, stew, salad dressing, whatever. It's going to be beautiful. But that means you're relying on the grid. That means you're relying on your freezer to continue to work. And if you choose to do that, that's fine. That's also a great idea. But I am going to try to do something different today. Not drying and not freezing. I'm going to preserve it in salt. Yes, my friends, I'm going to preserve it in my salt. I'm going to take my dill after I wash it and try to dry it as best I can. I'm going to chop it up into tiny little pieces. I'm going to mix it with salt, and I'm going to preserve it. I think it's still hot, in a jar. I just washed and sterilized a jar. You can store it in a salted condition in a jar, and it will be good for several months. Where you should store it in a cool place. Either if you have a basement or a cooler somewhere place in your house. Some people have root cellars. It's a beautiful place to put it in a root cellar. But if you don't have any of those places, this little jar will not take much of the space in the back of your refrigerator. But a little tiny half a teaspoon will serve a great addition to any of your dish. Oh, it's cooled off. To any of the dishes in the middle of the winter. Okay, so I am going to keep separating these little branches, and I will show you what I'm going to do after that. Okay, so I'm going to be trimming big stalks that I don't want, because I don't want them, and I'm going to be cutting this up into tiny little pieces that I can use it eventually in my soups, in my stews, even salad dressings. And believe it or not, you can even sprinkle a little bit when you're making a fresh sandwich. You're making a turkey sandwich, I suggest take a tiny little bit sprig, and I'm not going to be using this big stalk. Alright, so let's see. These stalks are no good. I'm going to be chopping it a little bit more. Because this is what the conversation is about. You can freeze it, you can dry it, but how did our ancestors operate without refrigeration? How did they store things? They knew how to use salt. Salt is a great preservative, right? And unfortunately, a couple of generations and we already forgot how to use it. So, all right, so I chopped it all up, and I'm going to transfer it over into my mixing bowl. Okay, let me continue cutting these. I think these are way too big. All right. It's funny, like when I first brought my dill, and I'm working outside today because it's just such a hot day and I don't want to be in the kitchen right now. It's better to be where there's a little bit of a breeze. When I first brought them in on this table and I laid them all out, and they looked so clean. All my dill stalks looked so clean. And then I've noticed that actually they're not as clean as I think. There were tiny little green bugs all over my dill. Just shows you that organic gardens that are not sprayed with pesticide will have some sort of a living organisms everywhere, and it's just something that I don't want to preserve it myself. So I washed the dill very well in several waters. I used a salad spinner to get rid of as much of moisture as possible. All right, that looks about right. So earlier today when we came home and I didn't have anything prepared for lunch, I was kind of like, okay, so what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? Everything, you know, the meat is frozen. We didn't defrost anything. We didn't get anything ready. What should we do? I went in my garden. I got some fresh lettuce out. I got some fresh onion, green onion that was growing, scallions, and I made a fresh salad dressing, and oh my goodness, you should have tasted it. It was so good. Babe, was it good? He's showing thumbs up. He's afraid to speak. Okay, so here is our chopped up dill. If there's a little, you know, stem left, it's okay. You'll be just fine. Okay, so here it is. Chopped up dill, and here's my salt. Remember, it was 8 ounces of dill and 4 ounces of salt. And I'm gonna mix everything very well. I know it looks like a lot of salt, but remember, the salt is the active ingredient to preserve dill. All right. I remember visiting a relative of mine in Russia, and she said, hey honey, can you go to the root cellar and get me a jar of dill? And I'm like, a jar of dill? Lady, what's wrong with you? But what she had was this preserved dill. So see how I'm covering all of the dill. Everything is nicely covered, and there you go. Beautiful. Okay, so I remember going to the root cellar, which a lot of Russian people had it actually outdoors, built outdoors. And I got a small jar of dill, and it was kind of interesting. Okay, so now I have my jar that I washed with soapy water and I sterilized it, and now I'm going to be filling this up. What I really should have grabbed is a funnel, because that would have really helped to protect. And I am going to fill this up and tightly pack it. I wanted this to be tightly packed. And what's interesting, that I already have a jar of this that I made earlier, a few weeks earlier, and it settled. It was all the way to the top, but I just went to use it today when I used it to make my salad dressing, and I used a teaspoon of that. Oh, it's so good. It smells so good. You know, it's funny, I used to hate dill when I was a kid. I hated that smell, and now I absolutely love it. So I'm hoping that I can actually push all of it inside. Oh, don't break it, Mama. Don't break it. So the salt will act to keep the bacteria level down, but yet it will allow very mild fermentation to start happening. So it will be just fine. I'm almost finished here. I think it will be to the top. Again, you know, you can do whatever you want with your herbs. And I know you can use other herbs. It's just in a Slavic household such as ours, dill is a very, very common herb that we use in almost every dish that we make. Okay, so here it is. It's all the way to the top. I packed it in nice and nice. I'm going to take my jar. I'm going to wipe the brim to keep it clean. Put a cover on. Look at this beauty. So I'm going to label it because you will forget what's in it. It's just human nature. So I'm going to say dill in salt, June. Today's still June, right? Yes, it's still June. June 2020. And I'm going to put it in my basement where it's nice and cool. It's usually never runs above 50, 55 degrees of Fahrenheit. So it's a nice cool place. And that's where I'm going to store it. Please excuse my hands because they're all dilly. So yeah, so this is how you can preserve dill. I hope to inspire you. I hope to have you guys try something new. Bye-bye now.